Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Srimati Mayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajadam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sarvadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vigna Vinasha Narasimha Iti Namani Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Sanyavari Paschati Deshatarini Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayatim girim yatkripatamaham vande Shri Guru Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Tatsat Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudire. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayana, unto Nara Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, and unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavate uttama sloke bhaktir bhavatir nashtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Nigamakalpatarurgalitam phalam sukamukadamritadravya samyutam pibata bhagavatam rasam alayam muhuraho rasika bhuvi bhavakaha. O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desired tree of Vedic literatures. It emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadev Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful, although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandana cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Nama Pankajanaභaya Nama Pankajamaline Nama Pankajanetraya Namaste Pankajangre Om Tat Sat. So Hare Krishna everybody. So we are continuing with our Srimad Bhagavatam narration. So let me just recap what we did the last 3 week. The last 3 sessions. We covered chapter 16. So chapter 16 was how Parikshit received the age of Kali. So we heard how Parikshit Maharaj set out from his kingdom. It started with a description of Parikshit Maharaj's kingdom and also his family, his sons, his kingdom, and all that. And after that, Parikshit Maharaj set out from his kingdom because he wanted to find where is the enemy which is causing ill symptoms to come in this kingdom. There was some situations where he saw people quarreling, so some kind of Kali symptoms were appearing. So he wanted to see what is the cause of this, and he went out. So then across that, eventually he came across a scene where there was a bull and a cow, and both of them were being attacked by this king who was actually a Shudra who was dressed like a king. So this is a very strange scene. In his kingdom, Shudras never dream of dressing up like a king, right? And another strange thing was the bull was standing only on one leg. The other three legs were cut off. And the cow was standing next to the bull and she was crying. So it was a scene like that where Parikshit Maharaj appeared. So in chapter 16 talked about in detail what was happening before Parikshit Maharaj came. So we heard about how the bull was asking the cow. The cow was crying, the bull was standing on one leg, and the Shudra Kali, the king who was dressed like a Shudra, was attacking the bull. Now the bull was the personification of religion itself, Dharma. And the cow was the personification of the earth, Bhuma Devi. So in that way, they were having a conversation while this is happening. And the bull was asking some questions to the cow, Mother Earth. So anyway, here I'm just covering some of the topics we discussed already. So some of the questions the bull was asking were, what was the cause of your misery? Why are you lamenting? Why are you crying, oh mother cow, Dharani? So is it because of my state? Are you crying because of my situation or the situation of Dharma in general, right? Or are you crying out of fear, out of exploitation of the cow and the bull? Or in other words, the exploitation of Dharma and the earth? Or are you crying, lamenting for the plight of the people in Kali Yuga? So therefore, these are all symptoms of Kali Yuga. In Kali Yuga, Dharma will be exploited and it will be degraded, and the earth will be fully exploited. And people in general will be in misery. So that is basically the plight of the people. And are you lamenting due to that? Or are you just lamenting because you are bereft of Krishna's presence? Because Krishna has left the world. So that is the real reason. So it's the root cause of Kali approaching in this world, simply because of a lack of Krishna consciousness in this world. So we can drive Kali back when there is sufficient Krishna consciousness. That was the point we discussed about in chapter 16. Okay. So while they were discussing this way, Dharani the cow was responding. She was responding, yes, indeed, it's true. All these points that you have raised, O Dharma. And then she affirmed all these points that Dharma actually raised. And while this was happening, at the end of this, Parikshit Maharaj arrives at the scene. So this is what happens. So we begin with chapter 17. Punishment and Reward of Kali, the title of this chapter. So these are all the subsections. So today I was thinking we will cover up to these 4 sections, right? So the setting of the crime scene. So we will discuss the crime scene setting. And then Maharaj Parikshit will issue a challenge to the criminal who is causing this problem, right? So all this we will discuss. So it starts with this verse 17.1. Suta Goswami said. So remember, this is a narration of, there are 2 narrations. Narration of Sukadev Goswami to Parikshit, and that conversation is being narrated in turn by Suta Goswami to Suta Goswami is narrating it to Saunaka Rishi in Naimisharanya. So it's a conversation within a conversation. So in Srimad Bhagavatam chapter 17.1, Suta Goswami said, after reaching that place, Maharaj Parikshit observed that a lower caste Shudra dressed like a king was beating a cow and a bull with a club, as if they had no owner. The bull was as white as a white lotus flower. He was terrified of the Shudra who was beating him, and he was so afraid that he was standing on one leg, trembling and urinating. So in other words, this is the state. Like remember, the bull represents religiosity or virtue or dharma. And the Shudra, who was dressed like a king and who was beating this bull, is actually the personification of Kali. And he represents all the so-called leaders of societies in our current situation. So the leaders of societies or the kings or the governments, they are all, from how it shows here, third class men, right? A Shudra is acting like a king. So third class men or fifth class men are pretending to be the government. So that's the problem. And what do they do? What's their activity? Their activity is simply to exploit and destroy dharma or religiosity. So that's what's happening here. And it seems religiosity, you can see here, dharma is so afraid of this that he's standing on one leg, trembling and urinating. So in other words, there is no hope in this Kali Yuga for dharma to actually stand tall. It's going to be, it's foretold, right? This is the situation that's happening here. Unless a reversal can occur, unless Krishna consciousness can spread all over the world. So that is the point. Just like how Parikshit Maharaj came and saved Dharma. So in this way, a God conscious or a Krishna conscious person can save religiosity in this world. So Prabhupada has lots of things to say in this purport. So he says, the principles of religion, which are all spotlessly white, like white lotus flower, will be attacked by the uncultured Shudra population of the age. They may be descendants of Brahmana or Kshatriya forefathers, but in the age of Kali, for want of sufficient education and culture of Vedic wisdom, such Shudra-like population will defy the principles of religion, and persons who are religiously endowed will be terrified by such men. So what he's saying here is, it all began very nicely. The kings and all were all coming from good forefathers, good dynasty, good lineage. Brahmanas were there, but slowly corruption creeps into each one of them. And then eventually they all become Shudra, like everybody, even though they were having a great dynasty or great lineage. Eventually they all end up as Shudras, right? And real spiritual people or the real religious people, they will be terrified of such men in this Kali Yuga. So they will declare themselves as adherents of no religious principles, and many isms and cults will spring up in Kali Yuga only to kill the spotless bull of religion. So this is also something, there are lots of different societies, different isms, communism, republicism, so many other things will crop up. It may start off very nicely, but in the end, it will only work to kill the virtue. It will work towards destroying virtue. It will work towards destroying dharma in this world. Although the cow is beneficial because one can draw religious principles from her, she has now been rendered poor and calfless. So this is another interesting point. The cow is very special. So here it says a cow is special because we can draw religious principles from her. And what does that mean? Drawing religious principles from a cow. So that Prabhupada will let us know in a short while, right? And this cow, as you remember, it represents the earth. So just like the earth is very beneficial, we can draw so many wonderful, we practically gain our nourishment from the earth. It supports us, it gives us nourishment. So in the same way, the cow is also representing her. But how she's being treated, despite that she's doing so much for humanity, the cow, and despite the earth supporting the entire humanity, how is the earth being treated? How is the cow being treated? So there is a symbiosis here between the cow and the earth. Just the treatment of the cow exactly replicates the treatment of the earth. So Prabhupada again later on will mention this also. Her legs were being beaten by a Shudra, right? There were tears in her eyes and she was distressed and weak. she was hankering after some grass in the field. So this is the state of the earth, completely exploited by unscrupulous governments and people. So we have all these different environmental situations. Climate change is a very big situation in the West, at least, not so much in the Southeast Asia and all that, because we are still third world in mentality, at least. So Prabhupada says here, milking the cow means drawing the principles of religion in a liquid form. So just now the verse was, we draw the principles of religion from the cow. So here Prabhupada clarifies what that means. That means milk, which is coming from the cow, represents the principles of religion in liquid form. So it's a very wonderful food stuff. It's a miracle food, right? Milk, Prabhupada said. The great rishis and munis would live only on milk. Srila Sukadev Goswami would go to a householder while he was milking a cow, and he would simply take a little quantity of it to subsistence. Even 50 years ago, no one would deprive a sadhu of a quart or two of milk, and every householder would give milk like water. So this was the situation even 50 years ago, according to Prabhupada. Right? I wouldn't know, I haven't reached 50 yet. So anyway, but the point here is the cow is well treated and well kept. So, and a happy cow, well treated, well respected, she is happy to give the principles of religion in the form of milk. And those who partake in this, they benefit greatly. How do they benefit greatly? Not just nourishment of the body. Milk, Prabhupada has mentioned, it develops the finer tissues of the brain, the subtle tissues of the brain. So in other words, it's basically mode of goodness food, right? Very much in the mode of goodness. So when one takes food in the mode of goodness, one learns to understand, it begins to understand higher principles easily. Scriptures, Vedas, these things are easy for them to understand when someone has this kind of a diet. So the same way, we can see also, for example, in what I wanted to say, we can also see, oh, I was going to say something and I forgot. Okay, anyway, I'll think about it when it comes to me. So let's continue. So Prabhupada says, for a Satanist, sorry, not Satanist, Sanatanist. Okay, I'm sorry for that. For a Sanatanist, a follower of Vedic principles, it is the duty of every householder to have cows and bulls as household paraphernalia, not only for drinking milk, but also for deriving religious principles. The Sanatanis worships cows on religious principles and respects Brahmanas. So when we say Sanatanist, Sanatan Dharma, right? So that is Sanatanist, one who follows Vedic principles, one who knows the ultimate goal of life, right? That is follower of Sanatan Dharma. So he knows how to respect cow, how to maintain cow, and how to derive the benefit from the cow as well. So this is what Prabhupada says. But in Kali Yuga, the calves are separated from the cows as early as possible for purposes which may not be mentioned in these pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. So you will find if you read these few verses, right, Prabhupada speaks a lot about cow slaughter. You can see he's very upset about cow slaughter. He continues on and on. So basically that's the biggest problem, because the cows are being systematically slaughtered and they are subjected to all kinds of mistreatment, and in this way we can directly proportionately see how the earth is suffering and how the people of the earth are also suffering. So this is the secret. The prosperity of the earth, very much just like how we have meter, when we know that when our temperature increases, we use our thermometer to check our temperature. So we know that, oh, if our temperature increases, oh, we have a fever, or possibly we may have COVID, or something will happen to us, right? So how do we understand the situation with the earth? We know the earth is going towards degrading, a worse situation when we see the cows are being mistreated. So that is the how happy the cow remains in the field, that directly shows the prosperity of the earth, and that's the meter in how we can gauge them. The cow stands with tears in her eyes. The Shudra milkman draws milk from the cow artificially, and when there is no milk, the cow is sent to be slaughtered. So this is what's happening in this world. So therefore, you find a lot of people have started this vegan movement. So the vegan movement not only follows vegetarianism, they also stay away from all animal products, including milk. So the main purpose is because they don't want to torture the milk. So some countries, not so much in Malaysia, but especially in Australia, you will find the cows are terribly ill-treated. So they have a factory system where they are kept, and the calves are separated as soon as they are born, and then they are killed when they are young. And it produces a very soft, tender flesh. They call it veal, V-E-A-L. And it's actually a delicacy in the West. So they are artificially milked. So, and sometimes blood also goes into the milk. So this is the reason they are stopped. But sometimes, but the thing is, one should not be a fanatic. Veganism is good, but one should understand the purpose behind. The purpose behind is to say to actually not to cause problems to the cow. But still, milk is necessary for human existence. So therefore, we need to look at safer ways or better ways on how we can get milk to live, right? Prabhupada said, when there is no choice what to do, one has to drink milk anyway, right? But together with that milk, it also may cause some disease. But it's necessary still as the mode of goodness. So that's why ISKCON is very much into cow protection, Go Seva, Go Raksha, and having its own farms and things like that, so that we can continue to derive great benefit from this. These greatly sinful acts are responsible for all the troubles in present society. Very powerful statement here, right? Prabhupada gives. He actually mentioned this many places. So that's why the first duty of any so-called government is to stop this slaughter. Now, India, for many years, was one of the world's largest producers of beef until the BJP government came into play, and then it was tried to put a stop to it, right? So that's the problem. So as long as a government supports cow slaughter, the people of the government who voted to put this government in those places in the first place, they also will suffer some of the reactions of this. So that's why we can see in Malaysia or in many other places in the world, a lot of things are happening, right? In the material world, the human society gives all protection to the human being, but there is no law to protect the descendants of Surabi, who can give all protection to men by supplying the miracle food, milk. So the cow not only gives milk, it gives all kinds of other wonderful things. You know, if someone is being haunted by evil spirits, black magic, and things like that, one of the best remedies is cow urine. So the cow protects the aura of the human being, right? From sorcery and things like that. The cow even gives all kinds of auspiciousness. You know, any kind of ceremony, graha pravesh, when you have a new house and things like that, we bring the cow in. So it creates auspiciousness just by her presence, and passing of stool and dung and urine. It's all auspicious. So it actually is purifying. The dung is purifying. You can make medicines out of it. The urine is something which we can drink for our health. So every single excrement, the milk included, right? It's beneficial. But for one such a creature who gives so much of benefit to human society, how have we instead shown our gratitude? So that's the problem. For protecting the cows and Brahminical culture, the Lord, who is very kind to the cow and Brahmanas, will be pleased with us and will bestow upon us real peace. So this is the first action of society. Once we have a society, once we have a government, once we have some kind of situation, then we can, the first order is to establish this. But how to establish this? It's not easy to establish cow protection. Cow protection can only be established when there is Brahminical varna. When there is Brahminical culture, then automatically cow protection will come into the picture. That the problem is lack of Brahminical culture. So you can see here, for protecting the cows, what is the first thing that needs to be done? It's not forming a worldwide organization or anything like that. It's not forming a society or anything like that. The first thing that needs to be done is to create Brahminical culture. So this is where ISKCON comes into play. If you remember ISKCON's main purposes, the 7 missions of ISKCON, Prabhupada created ISKCON so that everybody can benefit from Brahminical culture by understanding Vedic knowledge, by understanding Bhagavad Gita. So it is meant for each and every one of us to eventually imbibe this culture in this society. So in this way, as we preach, as more and more people become purified with Brahminical culture, then automatically it's like a domino effect. Then what will follow naturally? Cow protection will naturally follow. Just like simply by chanting Hare Krishna, all good qualities will begin to appear within our hearts, so long as we don't make our offenses, right? So in this way, simply by chanting Hare Krishna, all good qualities, Shreya Kairava Chandrika Vitaranam Vidyavadu Jivanam. Just like the lotus flower opens up, blossoms by the light of the moon, so simply by the hearing of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, the heart will blossom and it will reveal all good qualities. Okay. We must try to see the cows and the bulls happy in all respects. Foolish people do not know how one earns happiness by making the cows and bulls happy, but it is a fact by the law of nature. So here is a very interesting point also. So this is in society, as long as we talk about Varna and society, the first job is to protect the cows. Then automatically human prosperity will follow. There's no need for committee. There's no need for additional whatever ministry and things like that. It will automatically follow by the grace of the Lord, simply by doing this pleasing work for the Lord. So back to our statement. Maharaj Parikshit, well equipped with arrows and bow, and seated on a gold embossed chariot, spoke to him, the Shudra, with a deep voice sounding like thunder. So when Maharaj Parikshit saw this situation, immediately he took out his sword and started to challenge the Shudra. The so-called king was dressed like a Shudra, right? Because you remember, Maharaj Parikshit at that time, he just came across the scene. And without even hesitating, he got up, and because he was a king, he was a righteous king, and he knew what to do immediately. He knew all these signs about protecting the cow. Oh, who are you? You who appear to be strong, and yet you dare kill within my protection those who are helpless. So he chastises the Shudra king. By your dress, you pose yourself to be a godly man. So here is another hint about what will happen in the age of Kali. So not only low-class men, fourth, fifth-class men will become kings and leaders of societies and things like that, but they will also pretend to be very holy people. In public, in Zoom, in wherever situations, in meetings, they will act so wonderfully. So this is what will happen. More and more people will behave in this way in Kali Yuga. So it's not by the dress that we have to understand who is the holy man or who is the godly man, right? So anyway, it continues. But by your deeds, so it is by the deeds that one has to see, right? But by your deeds, you are opposing the principles of the twice-born Kshatriyas. So Maharaj Parikshit challenges this upstart. You rogue, do you dare beat an innocent cow because Lord Krishna and Arjuna, the carrier of the Gandiva bow, are out of sight? since you are beating the innocent in a secluded place, you are considered a culprit and therefore deserve to be killed. So here is another thing which will happen in Kali Yuga. In public, many wonderful projects will take place, but in silence, lots of people will be suffering. So this is, we can see also, right? In public, everything will look shiny. So since you are beating the innocent in a secluded place where there is no media, where there is no coverage, right? So this is what will happen in Kali Yuga. So and Parikshit Maharaj rightly says what such a person deserves to get. You are considered a culprit and therefore deserve to be killed. So this is what should be done to such people. Unfortunately, in Kali Yuga, such people are kings and leaders. So Prabhupada says, for a pious king, the culprit who kills an animal in a secluded place is punishable by death penalty. Exactly like a murderer who kills an innocent child in a secluded place. So the animals are considered like children. They are to be taken and guarded and protected. They are not to be given freedom, because we don't give children freedom, right? So, but that does not mean we ill treat the child. That does not mean that the child is not given food, protection, or love. So the animal is the same. One should give protection, love, shelter, and in this way, one has to ensure that this is done properly. Somebody is not muted. Sorry if I mute you, Mataji. Okay. So continuing, then Prabhupada continues. You will find many places like this where Prabhupada has spoken against democracy. The elected show bottle executive head as representative of a degraded public cannot be equal with a strong king like Maharaj Parikshit. So he has in different ways, nice phrases Prabhupada uses. The elected show bottle executive head as representative of a degraded public cannot be equal with a strong king like Maharaj Parikshit. The Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas are called twice born because for these higher classes of men, there is one birth by parental conjugation, and there is another birth of cultural rejuvenation by spiritual initiation of a acharya or a spiritual master. But what do we have now in the public? How many people who are made up of the public who are of this category? Those who are Brahminical in nature. So therefore, Prabhupada concludes, no one can expect justice or equality of treatment from once born lower class men, because these are the majority and these are the ones who are electing the government, who of themselves are made up of such people, and therefore what do we expect, right? So that's what Prabhupada is saying. Therefore, the people's government by the people who are not twice born must be a government of Kali in which everyone is unhappy. So this is how Kali Yuga conquers the various kingdoms in this world. So then Maharaj Parikshit asked the bull, "Oh, who are you? Are you a bull as white as a lotus flower, or are you a demigod?" So Parikshit Maharaj has chastised the Shudra so-called king, but he was not a rash king. Parikshit Maharaj will not rashly act, because he saw that this situation is very strange. How is it that the bull is standing on one leg, and how is it that this person can come here and dare to do such things? There must be something deeper. So therefore, before he rashly acts and takes out his sword and cuts off the head, first he inquires. So he starts an inquiry. He begins an inquiry. So he asks the bull, addresses the bull, "Who are you?" Right? "You have lost 3 of your legs and you are moving on only one. Are you some demigod causing us grief in the form of a bull?" So Parikshit Maharaj is very soft-hearted. So when he saw the bull in this condition, he was very grief struck. And then he's asking, what is your purpose, O bull? Why are you in this condition? Please explain, right? And then he continues further. Now, for the first time in a kingdom well protected by the arms of the kings of the Kuru dynasty, I see you grieving with tears in your eyes. So here you can see a bull, right, standing on one leg. So I took this picture because the bull is the representative of virtue or dharma, right? So all the devatas have blessed this virtue. And now this bull is grieving with tears in his eyes, completely being ill-treated. Up till now, no one on earth has ever shed tears because of royal negligence. So Parikshit Maharaj is taking this personally upon himself. So this is the responsibility of kings and leaders. The kings and leaders are not there to exploit people. They are there to ensure that the people are completely protected. So every single pain the king will, the civilians will undergo is actually something which the king has a right to correct. So it's his responsibility. So if at all there is poverty in this world, it is the responsibility of the kingdom, of the government. It is their responsibility for failing to eradicate poverty in this world. So like that, there are many responsibilities which they hold. So no one can say, oh, this is not the government's fault. It is the government's fault. It is the government's responsibility. Just like Lord Ram, when he was the king of Ayodhya, even everybody was completely happy. Not one person was sad. Not one person was crying, right? If at all somebody died prematurely, that also they have the right to go and speak to the king about it. Something you are doing is not right, O king. That's why such things are happening. They will question the king, right? So of course, that one, we can't even bother to ask such things nowadays. So anyway, O son of Surabi, you need lament no longer now. So son of Surabi, because she is all cows are descendant from Shurabi. There is no need to fear this low-class Shudra. And O mother cow, as long as I am living as the ruler and subduer of all envious men, there is no cause for you to cry. So after speaking to the bull, he speaks to the cow, to Dharani, Mother Earth. And she also tries to reassure. So he questions the bull and he reassures the cow. So this is how a gentleman behaves. Everything will be good for you. He reassures her and soothes her with soothing, calming words. It is certainly the prime duty of the king to subdue first the sufferings of those who suffer. So this is what I mentioned just now also, right? The king's prime duty is to take care of the citizens, to not allow any kind of suffering of the citizens. So the same thing goes for the leader. So one can be a king, one can be a leader, one can be and leader means not just necessarily a leader in that sense. It can also mean, like for example, a father is a leader of the family, the mother is also the leader for the children. So like that, the brother is the leader for the younger children, or the elder sister is the leader for the younger child. So in this way, everyone holds some aspect of leadership. So we have to take this responsibility seriously, even if our leadership is very small, the role. Right? Then he says, therefore, I must kill this most wretched man because he is violent against other living beings. So this is himsa. So this is one of the most, if you see in Hinduism, in Sanatan Dharma, ahimsa is one of the more foremost virtues. So one cannot be violent against another living being, especially when that living being is peaceful, right? So, but then one can say, what about the Kshatriyas? The Kshatriyas have a duty. What is their duty? They can be violent for a reason, and that reason is to protect dharma. because it is Dharma who will ultimately protect the innocent. And to uphold Dharma, the Kshatriya can protect Dharma in this way and show violence. But what is the purpose? The purpose is to ultimately protect the innocent. So that is the idea behind it, not to exploit. So Prabhupada says, the protection of the lives of both the human beings and the animals is the first and foremost duty of a government. A government must not discriminate in such principles. So Prabhupada here claims that both human and animals has to be protected. That's the duty of the government. As the wild animal is killed when it creates disturbances. So interesting, first Prabhupada says animal and human should be protected. Then right in the next statement, he says the wild animal is killed. So not only the wild animal is killed, the wild man is also killed, right? Just like if a man breaks the principles of justice and he creates or visits harm upon another person, he is punished and he is fit for being killed, right? So in the same way, animals and human beings have the same treatment in the sense of justice. They are given justice equally. The manner of justice may be different, but nevertheless, justice is there, right? Just like an ant has a different consciousness, a plant has a different consciousness, living beings of different levels have different consciousness, and a human being is the highest of all consciousness. So in the same way, punishment is also different at different levels, but punishment is justice. So justice is there at every level. So as the wild animal is killed when it creates disturbances, similarly, any man who unnecessarily kills or terrifies the jungle animals or other animals must be punished at once. So very interesting statement here also. So even hunting has to be done in a sustainable manner, right? So Kshatriyas are sometimes allowed to hunt because they need to practice their art of warcraft in order for them to protect Dharma. So how they do this? They will ensure that the forests where the sages are staying, the hermits are there. So in these places, the population of wild animals are kept in check. But they are not killed unnecessarily. It is just for the purpose of protection and keeping the population controlled. But otherwise, in general, they are free to roam. So that is for the Kshatriya alone to do, not for other classes of society to do. Okay. Maharaj Parikshit repeatedly addressed and questioned the bull, thus, O son of Surabhi, who has cut off your 3 legs? In the state of the kings who are obedient to the laws of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, there is no one as unhappy as you. So Parikshit Maharaj, in his entire kingdom, he has never seen anyone as unhappy. So when he saw Dharma and Dharani both shedding tears in such a sorry situation, he says, how can this be? The entire the world is obedient to the laws of the Supreme God, Supreme Lord. How can anyone be unhappy here? So he's asking Dharani and Dharma, who has done this? Although he sees that Shudra king is standing there with his club, right? But still, Maharaj Parikshit is not rash. He wants to get confirmation before he visits his wrath on that Shudra king. So he asks Dharani and the bull several times. So Prabhupada says, a tiger can kill a lower animal for his subsistence, but a man cannot kill an animal for his subsistence. That is the law of God. Where is it there? Where is it given? It is given in the Manu Smriti, right? Also in many other places. Ahimsa is one of the tenets given to man to follow. No harm caused upon another living being. But then again, according to the law of God, you can see here, he has created that a living being subsists by eating another living being. This is the law of God in this world. So someone can challenge. They will say, okay, you say that a tiger can kill an animal, but I cannot kill. But then the law of God is like that, right? Everything needs to eat one living being. We cannot eat stone. We cannot eat rock. We cannot eat sand. So we have to eat another living creature. So another living being. So it is either an animal or a plant, right? So the difference here, we can see obviously the plant is very different compared to the animal. So our rightful food is the plant, but still the plant is a living entity. So therefore we cannot be too proud also to be a vegetarian. So like that, there are lots of people out there who are very proud of being vegetarian. And even worse than them are the vegans, who are even more proud. They are so proud that they even attack the vegetarians. They are not happy that, oh, at least we have somebody who is following in their direction. So instead of uniting and being together and trying to change the world, there's sometimes war between these two people, vegetarians and the vegans. It's a very foolish thing to do. So thus the vegetarians are also living by eating other living beings. Therefore, the law is that one should live only by eating specific living beings as ordained by the law of God. And the specific living beings which are meant for human consumption is plants. So not animals. So that is the law of God. So how do we know this law of God? We have to read scripture or we have to hear from it. Otherwise, we will suffer the reactions. We cannot claim to be ignorant because just like how fire burns the ignorant child, in the same way, karma affects even the ignorant. So the Ishopanishad directs that one should live by the direction of the Lord. So how do we know what to follow then? So do we make up our own laws, just like the vegans? Do we say that, oh, we should not eat anything other than plants? If you drink milk, you're a horrible person. So yes, we don't want to drink blood milk, right, which are cruelly extracted. But nevertheless, milk is very important. It is meant for human consumption. It is meant for the development of finer tissues of the brain. So one has to do something about that, right? So we have to follow based on God's word. We cannot manufacture our own word. We cannot manufacture our own religion. So the Ishopanishad gives a clear instruction, right? It tells one should live by the direction of the Lord and not one's sweet will. Because whatever that comes from the Lord is perfect. And this is true in all ages. One just has to understand how to properly understand this. It's never proven wrong. Yes, there's time, place, circumstances, but at the same time, ultimately, there is an adjustment for each one of it. There is there are eternal principles and there are emergency principles. So the eternal principles always remain the same. The emergency principles may change according to time. So we have to know the difference in scripture. So Parikshit Maharaj continues, "O bull, you are offenseless and thoroughly honest." So that is the nature of virtue. That is the nature of dharma, right? "Therefore, I wish all good to you. Please tell me of the perpetrator of these mutilations, which blacken the reputation of the sons of Pritha." So he's again asking in so many ways to the bull. "Whoever causes offenseless living beings to suffer," and then he gives an ultimatum. Parikshit Maharaj gives an ultimatum to the Sudra king. "Whoever causes offenseless living beings to suffer must fear me anywhere and everywhere in the world." So therefore, he's again and again asking the bull, please tell me who it is. And Parikshit Maharaj, oops, sorry, what has happened? A moment. Let me stop share and unshare again. Something wrong with this. Just a moment. Okay. All right. By curbing dishonest miscreants, one automatically benefits the offenseless. So this goes without saying. So Prabhupada says dishonest miscreants flourish because of cowardly and impotent executive heads of state, because they don't have the virtue or the gumption or the capability to curtail this kind of miscreants or troublemongers. So Parikshit Maharaj was not such a person. He was fully potent, he was very powerful, and he was able to curtail any miscreants, even if it is heavenly denizens. So Srimad Bhagavatam continues. Parikshit Maharaj says, an upstart living being who commits offenses by torturing those who are offenseless shall be directly uprooted by me, even though he be a denizen of heaven with armor and decorations. So Parikshit Maharaj is not fearful. He is willing to even strike down anyone as long as they are against Dharma. So this is how a king should be. He should be prepared to fight even to the death to save his the civilization from degradation. So Prabhupada says the state executive head must be as strong as Maharaj Parikshit, so that he may be determined to punish the strongest offenders. So it's not someone who compromises with them. He was not falsely proud, Prabhupada is saying, for a devotee of the Lord is equally as powerful as the Lord, or sometimes more powerful by his grace. And promise, so this is a very interesting statement, for a devotee of the Lord is equally as powerful or sometimes more powerful simply by his, but how is this so? By his grace, by Krishna's grace. Krishna sometimes allows, just like between the father and the child will sometimes act in such a way that they will have a playful fight, and the child will sometimes say, I've defeated you, father, and he'll push the father away. But actually the father is more powerful. But he just allows the child to fall off. So in this way, the Supreme Lord, by the grace of the Supreme Lord, the devotee of the Lord sometimes behaves in that way. Sometimes looks like as if he's more powerful. Just like Parashuram and Bhishma. So Parashuram was a Sakyavesh avatar, and Bhishma was his disciple. And when they fought, there was a time when they fought actually, and then they were at a draw. They couldn't defeat each other, and at that time, Bhishma Dev had a special arrow. So this special arrow would cause Parashuram to yawn. If he shoots that arrow, Parashuram will start yawning uncontrollably. So when that happens, then he is considered the victor. So he was about to shoot the arrow, but then the voice from the sky said, do not strike this arrow, because then it cannot happen. Parashuram cannot lose. So accept this defeat. So it was not a defeat. So it's considered that Bhishma won. So in that sense, it's more powerful than the so-called Sakyavesh avatar of the Lord, not so-called, the actual Sakyavesh avatar of the Lord. But still, it is by the grace of the Lord. So in the same way, Arjuna also had, by the grace of the Lord, was able to defeat so many powerful people. And in the same way, Parikshit, by the grace of the Lord, was able to overcome even Indra or even heavenly denizens. So Parikshit knew full well his power simply by the grace of the Lord. And any promise made by a devotee, though it may be ordinarily very difficult to fulfill, is properly executed by the grace of the Lord. So like this also we see many examples. Just like how Brahma gave the boon to Hiranyakashipu, very difficult boon, but still simply to keep the word of Brahma, to keep the boon of Brahma intact, the Lord came and took a very wondrous form and fulfilled all the conditions. He didn't have to. So, but still, just to save the honor of his devotee, he did it. And when he does it, it's wondrous to see. So in this way, right, the supreme duty of the ruling king is to give all protection to the law-abiding persons and to chastise those who stray from the ordinance of the scriptures in ordinary times when there is no emergency. So here's the important verse for today for us to understand, right? So as I said, there are two dharmas. There is dharma and there is apat dharma or emergency dharma. So any king or leader, so as I said, leader doesn't mean just leader of a big thing, a big organization. All of us are leaders. As long as we have responsibility, someone is under us, someone who is following us, we have a responsibility. So we have to apply the same concepts of leadership to all of us. So how to know the difference? We have to know that there are two things. There is dharma and there is apat dharma, emergency dharma, and there is eternal dharma. So Prabhupada says, in the scriptures, there is mention of apat dharma or occupational duty at times of extraordinary happenings. So, for example, in the case of emergency, one may be allowed to eat the flesh of animals of all descriptions, Prabhupada says, right? Just like Vishwamitra, at one point of time, he had to eat the flesh of a dog. He was in a very terrible predicament. This is what Prabhupada says. I don't know about this myself, but he mentions it in the purport. So, but it was an emergency. That doesn't mean we say, oh, you know, Prabhupada, Vishwamitra ate dog, so I also can eat dog. So let's get a dog to eat it. So that's emergency. It was in a situation. So even Prabhupada told one of his disciples that if you go to preach in certain places, like in the, you know, in Eskimo city, territory and all that, there's hardly any vegetables growing. So when there is no situation like that, then there's no choice. To keep body and soul together, it may be necessary, but that is emergency. That is not something which is ordinary. And this is what Prabhupada clearly makes the difference, right? So like that, there are many such situations. There are, in every rule, there is some exception somewhere which can be applied at an emergency, in an emergency situation. So the personality of religion said, now after saying all these things, asking so many times, now Parikshit Maharaj, so obviously that the Shudra king is the one who attacked the bull. And he himself, Parikshit Maharaj himself, is asking the bull so many times, who is the one who did this to you? Tell me. Now it's very interesting, the response of the bull. So when I first saw this many years ago, the response of the bull, I think this was, I was very flabbergasted. I was like, huh? This is the response of the bull? So it's very, very interesting. So let's see what's so interesting about it. The personality of religion said, these words just spoken by you befit a person of the Pandava dynasty. So the bull gives his blessings to the Parikshit Maharaj to show that what you're saying is virtuous. What you're saying is dharma. Captivated by the devotional qualities of the Pandavas, even Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead, performed duties as a messenger. So basically, dharma is glorifying Parikshit Maharaj and glorifying his lineage. He's saying, you are from the Pandavas. The Pandavas were so glorious. Why are they so glorious? Because they were so great in their devotion to Krishna that they completely conquered Krishna. And Krishna was acting in so many sweet ways. They were even acting like a messenger for them. If you remember the story where Krishna acted as a messenger, he was he actually went to Duryodhana to plead for peace on behalf of Yudhishthira Maharaj. So messenger is not something of a very high status, just like a chariot driver. So in this way, Krishna wouldn't mind. He was so taken by the devotion of the Pandavas. He considered it as he considered it a privilege for himself to actually serve them. It's a very sweet relationship of master and servant. So who is the master and who is the servant? So that is a very blur line in when it comes to bhakti, something which the materialists cannot understand. So that is why they find it very difficult to surrender to the Supreme Lord. They cannot understand the concept of surrender, right? Because they don't know the sweet pastimes of the Lord. So Prabhupada says, such duties executed by the Lord for his devotee are always very pleasing to the Lord, because the Lord wants to render service to his unalloyed devotee. Just like the mother and the child, when the child is born, the mother is so happy to serve the child, right? Change the napkin la, try to keep the child pacified la, give milk to the child, all kinds of things the mother will do, just to keep the child happy. All the seva that the mother is doing for the satisfaction of the child, the mother takes great pleasure in doing this. So in the same way, the Lord takes great pleasure to coddle the devotees of the Lord in this ways, whose life has no other, and who are these people who are fit to be treated such by the Lord? Not just any person. Here the definition Prabhupada gives, his unalloyed devotee, whose life has no other engagement than to serve the Lord with full love and devotion. So such were the Pandavas. O greatest among human beings, the bull is now replying to Parikshit Maharaj. So he's acknowledging Parikshit Maharaj as Raja Rishi, great human being. It is very difficult to ascertain. Now, this is the part that blew me over when I heard this long time ago. It is very difficult to ascertain the particular miscreant who has caused our sufferings. Now, if somebody asks us this question, we will be very fast to point our fingers. Oh, he is the one who did it. You are the one who did it. He is the one who did this to me, right? Very quickly, we will point our fingers to blame. But just see what Dharma is doing. It's so obvious that the Kali is the one who's doing this, that Sudra King is the one who hurt the Dharma. But very interesting to hear this statement. It is very difficult to ascertain the particular miscreant who has caused our sufferings, because we are bewildered by all the different opinions of theoretical philosophers. So the bull is actually trying to tell, in Kali Yuga, you cannot point the finger at one person, actually speaking, because there are many, many, many factors and multiple hidden hands going around. We do not really know the actual situation, what is happening. Just like COVID, for example. There are some people saying it is man-made. There are some people saying that there is a lot of conspiracy and Illuminati la, this la, that la, so many different things people are saying. So we do not know what are the factors. So Bull is saying here, Dharma is saying, in Kali Yuga, it's very difficult to understand what is the real reason. There are many hidden hands and there are many, many hidden reasons. And at the same time, it doesn't help that there are also many different opinions also. So the bull says, because we are bewildered by all the different opinions of theoretical philosophers. So Prabhupada has lots of things to say here, but I will just speak on some. Although the bull, or the personality of religion, and the cow, personality of earth, knew perfectly well that the personality of Kali was the direct cause of their sufferings, still, as devotees of the Lord, they knew well also that without the sanction of the Lord, no one could inflict trouble upon them. So I should highlight this statement. This is a very important statement by Srila Prabhupada. for us to understand and for us to also imbibe in our consciousness. So if we want to be like the Pandavas, if we want to be dear to the Supreme Lord, we have to develop this consciousness. In many situations, sometimes we know what has happened, what is causing us problems, right? But we should also understand that if something is happening, that means the Lord wants it to happen to us for a reason. So nothing happens by chance. That as soon as whether we are devotee or whether we are non-devotee, nothing in this world happens by chance. Everything works based on design. For the materialist, for the non-devotee, the design is from karma. Karma is the cause of that design. So even if it looks like, something, hey, by chance I've seen you. No, it is all by design. There is a reason behind it. Okay, that is for the materialist. For the devotee, even the neophyte devotee who is beginning his Krishna consciousness, nothing happens by karma. Everything happens based on the sanction of the Lord. So it's like this. We have our karmas are there. And while we are non-devotees, the karma, imagine all our karma is in one file, right? A big file lah. But that one file, it is sitting on the table of a desk of the manager. And the manager is Maya Devi. And she is Durga Devi or Maya Devi. She is the one looking at our file and trying to decide what to do. But as soon as we become a devotee, the file which is kept on the Maya's desk is instantly transferred to a higher department. And it goes into the desk of Krishna. So Krishna now keeps he takes the same file. Now this is the specialty of Krishna. He takes that same file, the same karma that we are supposed to get. But now, because Krishna is looking at it, the way what happens to us, it takes a new light. It's no longer, oh, I'm suffering because I did this, or I have to go through this misery. It is because Krishna wants me to learn something out of this. There's something here that I can take advantage of and upgrade myself to a higher devotion. So there is an opportunity at every situation. So basically, this is the important point that we have to understand. By the will of God, right? They knew well that without the sanction of the Lord, not even a blade of grass moves. So does that mean that the Lord is cruel, that he allows such things to happen? No, because he knows that very quickly the devotees will come back to him. And he wants that the moment the person takes up devotional service, Krishna wants them to come back quickly. So he takes that big file and he compresses them he removes a lot of unnecessary things. Actually, in that file, we are supposed to go through many, many, many more things. And we are supposed to go through many, many lifetimes of situations. But he takes away every other lifetime. And he keeps it only within this lifetime. And that also he takes some things out and he modifies here and there, and he builds a new package for us. It's like refinancing a loan. So it's like a new package for us. Only thing that this is better. It actually helps us to go back to Godhead very quickly. So if we can develop this mind frame, then we become very dear to the Lord, and very quickly we can make advancement even in this life, and we can go back to Godhead. Thus, even if the devotees see the mischief mongers, they do not accuse them for the sufferings inflicted. They take it for granted that the mischief monger is made to act by some indirect cause, and therefore they tolerate the sufferings, thinking them to be God-given in small doses, for otherwise the sufferings should have been greater. So this is the thinking of the devotee. So we have to take this statement of Prabhupada and plant it into our head and remind ourselves of it constantly in all the situations that will come to us in the future. It's a very important concept and taught to us by a bull, right? So we should definitely heed it as we are human beings. Some of the philosophers who deny, so the bull continues, right? He says in Kali Yuga, everything is hidden. It's hard to determine the actual cause, the root cause. So we never know, right? So it is always unwise to point the finger. So then he continues, at the same time, there are many philosophers who say all kinds of things. So some philosophers who deny all sorts of duality declare that oneself is responsible for his personal happiness and distress. So there are different types of people, right? So Prabhupada gives an elaborate purport here on this is basically on the Sat Darshanas, on the different philosophies of Hinduism. We have those who are the Sankhya philosophy. Then we have the Sankhya, the yoga philosophy by Patanjali, and then we have the Nyaya philosophy by Gautama, and then we have the Vaiseshika philosophy by Kannada, and then we have the Mimamsa philosophy by Jaimini, and we also have the Vedanta philosophy by Vyasadeva. So Vyasadeva, after he wrote all the scriptures, he entrusted certain aspects of the scriptures to his disciples. Now, the Vedas are the manual of the universe, right? It has all kinds of things, karma kanda, every kind of philosophy meant for every kind of people imaginable in this world, in this universe. So most of the Vedas are made out of karma kanda stuff. So he divided, but to preserve the knowledge, nevertheless, the knowledge is useful, right? So therefore, to preserve this knowledge, he gave them to his disciples, like Jaimini, Kannada, and then Kapila. So these kind of people, they were custodians. And as custodians, they further expanded each of these schools. And then they also, but eventually along the way, they lost sight of the ultimate goal. But knowing that this will happen, Vyasadeva kept the most the confidential aspects of bhakti within his own school, which is Vedanta. And in that way, the Vedantas developed and the same concepts are applied. So the Vedanta philosophers, they accept everything in the Vedas and they understand the key to understanding the Vedas. Whereas the other philosophers, they don't understand everything. They only understand certain aspects, like the Patanjali yoga people. They will only accept certain shrutis. They will reject smriti. They will reject other aspects of the scriptures, and they will write their own further elaborations and things like that. So, but they do not understand the ultimate goal of the Vedas. Just like Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, right? There's a verse in chapter 2, Bhagavad Gita. He says, all the purposes of a small well is at once achieved by a large reservoir of water, right? So, in the same way, the purport of the Vedas is at once understood by one who knows the purpose behind the Vedas. And who is the person who wrote the Vedas? It is Vyasadeva. So he ultimately knows the purpose behind it. So anyway, that's just the point here. You can read more on the purport. Prabhupada explains about the various different types of philosophers, Jaimini and all that. So we will not dwell on this too much. Others say that superhuman powers are responsible. So some people say it is me, myself, and I alone who's responsible for all that I get. Now, these are gross materialists. They think that by my effort, by my thinking, but by understanding alone, I will achieve so much of wealth, so much of success. So they think like that. They don't understand that there are other factors. Not everybody who wants to be rich is rich, right? Not everybody who is hardworking achieves what they want to achieve, isn't it? So there are other factors. Bhagavad Gita gives these other factors. At the same time, others say that superhuman powers alone are responsible. So we don't have to do anything. We simply have to pray. So that's another concept, which is not exactly true also. While yet others say that activity is responsible. So it is the activity itself, the karma. So in other words, karma is responsible. Yes, karma is responsible, but not entirely also. There are other aspects. There is always free will, and there is also God's guidance. So there are other aspects to it. And the gross materialists maintain that nature is the ultimate cause. So actually there's a very, this verse, we can have a very detailed discussion, but it goes into a very technical aspect. So we won't go through this in detail today. So we will just gloss through this. And then the Dharma continues. There are also some thinkers who believe that no one can ascertain the cause of distress by argumentation, nor know it by imagination, nor express it by words. So that means these are philosophers who think that the ultimate truth is ultimately unknowable, unknown. So there are people like that. For example, even in modern days also, we have like Islam and all that. They say that the supreme truth is the supreme unknown. So it's nothing new. Even in the Vedic school of thought also, there are some people like, for example, the Vaisheshikas. No, not the Vaisheshikas, the Mimamsas. They talk like that. Impersonalists like Ashtavakra also speak like that, right? This is Brahman. Everything is ultimately one, and we cannot know. There is no variegatedness. So they speak in that way. So then the bull said, "O sage amongst kings." So he's telling that you are the sage amongst kings. Judge for yourself by thinking over all this with your own intelligence. So therefore, he is asking the king to make a decision. Go through, understand all these concepts, and with higher intelligence, know what is the real point behind it. So in this regard, right, I just want to mention there's a very nice verse from previous chapters in the Bhagavatam. Lord Bhishma Dev, when he died, when he was on the bed of arrows, the Pandavas came to see him. And then when he saw the Pandavas, so much of affection Bhishma had for the Pandavas, so he finally spoke these words, Aho kashtam, aho anyayam, yad yurvam dharma nandanaha. What he says? He says, so much of kashtam, difficulties, so much of anyayam, injustice. You people who are Dharma Nandana, sons of religion himself, and led by Dharmaraj himself, had to undergo. Right? Who can understand the cause behind this? It is not karma, right? So it is simply the Lord himself who has put you into all these situations. And then he continues to say, one cannot estimate the Lord's reactions, either by speculation or scholarship. We cannot understand why we are going through what we are going through, why the Lord puts his devotees in certain situations. Sometimes the glory is revealed, sometimes it is hidden to us until it is revealed at a later time to acharyas. So, but ultimately he has his purposes. So this is the understanding devotees will have. So Prabhupada says, why does he put some into difficulty and not others? He is the supreme knower and compiler of the Vedas. No one is independent of him. There is no incongruity or inebriety in his actions. So we have to have faith that the Supreme Lord knows the ends of all roads. He knows what each road will lead us into. He knows the ends of it. So if he closes a path to us, we with our short-sighted mind, we may think that this is such a disaster, but we should know that Krishna actually has a greater plan for us, that he's actually saving us from a larger problem. So therefore, we have to have this faith. So this is given in the scripture. Bhishma Dev says this to Yudhishthira Maharaj and all of them. And Yudhishthira Maharaj and all of them never once also gave up faith, never once also gave up virtue. Despite all the difficulties, they never said, I should, why should I be unvirtuous to a person who is not following Dharma? They never said like that. They always kept virtue till the end. So, and in this way, Krishna was very pleased with them. So Tasmat, so Bhishma gives a conclusion. Tasmat, therefore, idam daiva tantram. Therefore, the conclusion is the sufferings of the representative of religion, which are the Pandavas, and the representative of the earth, right, as present before Maharaj Parikshit. So if we go back to, this is Prabhupada's purport, right? So just like how Bhishma said, Daiva Tantram, this is all by the arrangement of the Lord, right? They were planned to prove. So just like in this way, Dharani and Dharma were put in this situation, and apparently the Kali is attacking them. So they were put in this situation simply to glorify Maharaj Parikshit and simply to bring out important points for us to understand. That if the personality of religion himself is subjected to this, if Bhuma Devi herself is subjected to Kali, right, we can understand we also should be ready to tolerate the situations that will come across to us and hold strongly to Krishna's lotus feet, hold strongly to his chanting of the holy names, and hold strongly to our promise of our initiation and continue with faith, right? And let this be our last birth. So therefore, Maharaj Parikshit was put to test for his greatness. So we end over here with this statement. So what we have done, we have completed the crime scene. We have heard Maharaj Parikshit's challenge to Kali. We have heard Maharaj Parikshit's reassurance to Dharma and to the Dharani, right? And he begins to conduct his inquiry. And then we also heard the amazing response of Dharma, the bull, in response to naming the aggressor. So we have covered half the chapter. So then there are further few chapters. Maharaj Parikshit after that will be, after hearing this response from Dharma, which we have covered today, Maharaj Parikshit will begin to make his judgment. And then punishment of Kali will be given. And after that, we will hear what Kali speaks. And then in this way, the chapter will end. Okay, so thank you very much, everybody. We end with this. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Any questions from anybody or any comments to add? Hare Krishna, Kashi Mishra Prabhu. Happy to see you. I'll tell you. So there's no
Hare
question.
Krishna Prabhu. Sorry, Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Nice class, wonderful class. Nice, wonderful class. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you for the encouragement. Okay, so if there's no other questions, so then I will wish you all a happy Radha Yatra, virtual Radha Yatra for tomorrow, and have a blessed week, and we will see you all next time. Hare Krishna. Dandava pranams to you.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.